In the aftermath of Monday's mass shooting in Colorado, the president is not surprisingly said to be considering executive action when it comes to gun control. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said on Tuesday both legislative action as well as executive orders are on the table. Background checks are said to be a big part of any type of initiative. Earlier this month, close to 36 Senate Democrats introduced a measure to ban assault weapons. Greg?
Okay, well, it's to be expected. The Democrats push toward a vote on expanded gun control measures. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says he is open to the discussion while also declaring his opposition to reform legislation that passed the House earlier this year. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer vowed Tuesday morning to bring to the Senate floor legislation passed by the House that would require background checks for most gun sales and transfers. While a Senate vote on a new gun control would be the first in several years, Democrats do not have the votes to pass any significant reform. With the filibuster in place forcing a 60-vote threshold for most legislation, House-passed bills on issues like gun control and voting rights are effectively non-starters unless the Democrats secure significant GOP support or do away with the filibuster.
The filibuster is what makes the Senate the Senate. I have said it before, but we don't need two House of Representatives here in Washington, D.C. So maintaining the filibuster is very, very important. What we see from Democrats, however, is that they want to get rid of the filibuster, and what we call that is a power grab.
That's exactly what it is. They have talked about getting rid of the filibuster. I want to welcome John Graves in. I embellished your introduction there a little bit at the beginning. A Victory News contributor. Welcome, sir, to the program.
Glad to be with you.
Okay, let's go over a few things. I want to give the viewers the Colorado gun laws, which are much stricter than others in the nation. Colorado already has universal background checks, all the things the Democrats are talking about. They have a 15-round magazine limit. They have a red flag law. I want to come back to that with you. Protections in place. Yep. They have closed gun show and boyfriend loopholes. That's what it's called. They have mental adjudication prohibiting firearm ownership. They have, if you have a restraining order in the state of Colorado, you cannot own a firearm. The city of Boulder and Boulder County has further restrictions. They have an assault weapon ban in Boulder, and they have a 10-round magazine limit. Let's go back to that red flag law. This young man would have applied under that, but none of those things worked.
And that's the problem. 2 Corinthians 3:6 says the law brings death. When I was in law school, it drove me nuts because every time a crisis happens, they create a new law without realizing that law is not necessarily fixing that particular problem. As long as there's evil in the world, there's criminals in the world, the criminals are going to go get the guns. What we're doing is making it harder and harder and harder for citizens to defend themselves or to own weapons. In the Constitution and the founding is very clear. I love John Adams' statement on this. If a person is armed, he's a citizen. But if he's unarmed, he's a subject. He just does whatever he's told and he's at the mercy of not defending himself, but the government's got to come in and save him. And so we need to know what all the facts are in this thing. It's not looking good right now, but just watch the people who try to spin this and blame it on a gun or blame it on something else.
Right. We had that gun debate. It was in 1791, and it was decided. I want to read you a quote by Thomas Jefferson saying basically what you just said from Adams. Those that hammer their firearms into plows will plow for those that did not.
That's right.
John?
Yeah, the Second Amendment is so that we can defend ourselves and we can even stop an oppressive, tyrannical government. That's exactly what we fought out of England to get free from. And so we need those rights. It doesn't mean we don't need sensible reforms. We don't need to figure out what's going on. But again, let's see what all the facts are here. Clearly, this was a troubled young man, but what people to do in the mainstream media a lot of times is they try to spin it, it's a racial issue, or they try to spin it, oh, well, if we can't go after that, let's go after the guns. If we can't go after the guns, he was a religious fanatic. He's obviously Muslim. We don't know if that was part of the motive here. If it is, let's stop all faith fanatics, which influences Christians. And so watch what they try to do with these little bitty, and the tragedy is people died. The police officer had 7 kids. It's a tragedy. And so that's what we need to be focused on. is not trying to de-weaponize the rest of the United States citizens.
When it first happened, many of the stories on some of the networks were he was a white male, that it's a white male, another white male, and they didn't know any of the facts, but their bias was coming out.
I saw that.
And to your point, I want to give you one more Jefferson quote before I pitch this to Tim. It says, only a government that is afraid of its citizens will try to control them. Tim?
That's right.
Well, that's good right there. Reports are beginning to trickle in describing the conditions at the Border Patrol facilities that are overwhelmed by Biden's border crisis. According to Border Patrol agents, the facilities that are designed to house migrants as they cross the border are stressed beyond belief, is what they're saying. Family unit holding cells smell like urine and vomit. Fights break out in the unaccompanied minor cells. Scabies, lice, the flu, and COVID-19 run rampant, and that's just the beginning. Up to 80 individuals are squeezed into a 24 by 30-foot cell, and there aren't enough mattresses for everyone, leaving only sheets of plastic to divide the rooms. Border Patrol agents are also saying it's now common knowledge that if you bring a child with you, you'll be quickly released into the United States. They're being transported all over the country, but popular destinations include Houston, New York, and California, as well as Maryland and Washington, D.C.
All right, Texas Senator Ted Cruz is fed up with the Biden media blackout at the border, and he's now pressing the administration to make a change. Cruz wrote a letter to President Joe Biden. You're looking at a copy of that there. For the lack of ability for the press to observe, film, and report on the situation at the border. He said that the restrictions equate to hiding the truth from the American people. Cruz, who along with 12 other senators will visit the border this week, slammed Biden for not allowing for the press members to join their trip, saying it's not enough for the members of the Senate to see what's happening. The American people must see it. That is why I requested members of the media to be allowed to join us, but your administration clearly and emphatically refused to offer press access. This is outrageous and hypocritical. The White House has yet to respond to Cruz's letter, but we will be there tomorrow with the senators.
Yes, we will. It appears the leadership in Mexico is preparing to do more to address the crisis at our southern border than we are. According to reports, Mexico has deployed nearly 9,000 troops to prevent migrants from the Northern Triangle, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras from reaching the United States. The Mexican military has set up 347 immigration checkpoints along 3 main routes in Mexico: the Gulf, Central, and Pacific, according to Mexican officials. The announcement comes as the Biden administration is sending a delegation to Mexico to discuss the ongoing immigration crisis. Greg?
All right, I want to bring in author, pro-life advocate, and founder of Then There Were None, Abby Johnson. We've been talking about a lot of death and destruction and covering that. Let's now talk about life. We've been covering a number of stories from states all focused on protecting the unborn. Tell us about the status of pro-life movement now in the United States. Abby, welcome.
Thanks for having me. You know, we have several states that are pushing some really great pro-life legislative efforts. South Carolina, Arkansas, Louisiana, my state that I live in, the great state of Texas. So we have some really great efforts happening at the state level, which is honestly where we always see the most success is at the state level. You know, we are never going to have any sort of slam dunk case at the federal level. And we've seen that time and time again, no matter who is in the White House. The bulk of our success is going to take place at the state and local level. So we do see a lot taking place at the state level, a lot of really good things happening. We're in the middle of a 40 Days for Life campaign right now, which is fantastic. So tens of thousands of people going and standing and praying outside, peacefully praying outside of their local abortion facilities. We've seen hundreds and hundreds of babies that have been saved because of those efforts. pregnancy centers open across the nation, despite all of this, COVID-19 fear. Pregnancy centers have kept their doors open, serving women in crisis. So there's lots to be thankful for in the pro-life movement, and lots to be hopeful for.
Right. We had Monday, we had Senator Hughes from Texas. He has introduced a heartbeat bill here in the state of Texas, and we were excited about that. When you were a worker inside of Planned Parenthood years ago, before you got out of that, what did those kind of peaceful protests, what influence did it have on you as a worker back then?
Well, it has a significant influence. I mean, it's a nuisance for sure, primarily because this sort of prayerful gathering outside of an abortion facility, it takes away business. And I say that because at the last Planned Parenthood conference I went to, I actually sat in a breakout session that was called anti-choice harassment. So that's, all of the people that go and stand and pray out in front of the facilities. And I was told a statistic during that breakout session that I've been spreading as much as I can since I left the industry. And that is this statistic. They started looking at the no-show rates. So women who have appointments for an abortion, but they just simply don't show up. And what they found is that when there are people outside praying in front of abortion facilities, that no-show rate goes as high as 75%. So just being there, standing and praying in front of an abortion facility could be the reason that a woman just continues to drive right by that abortion clinic and doesn't go in. And somebody might say, well, why is that? Well, because you are that physical sign that what is taking place inside of that abortion facility is morally objectionable. And I can't tell you how many times women have come up to us when we've been out there praying, and they'll say, you know what, I had an abortion appointment today, but I prayed for a sign, and you being out here is that sign.
So 75%, that means 3 out of 4 people, 3 out of 4 children may have as a result of that. Well, it puts it in a whole new perspective. All right, some strong words this week from the U.S. commander of the Indo-Pacific region about China. According to the UPI, John Aquilino talked about concern he has that China could seize Hong Kong by military force. And that force in the region must be ready to respond. According to the report, Biden administration National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster warned that Taiwan is the most significant flashpoint that could lead to a large-scale war. John Graves, let me bring you back in. We're hearing the saber rattling. We didn't hear anything from North Korea. Now, all of a sudden, we're hearing things from North Korea again. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and famously, President Trump said that when he met with President Obama, former President Obama, he said the number one threat was North Korea. So President Trump went after that. He shut that down, and you heard none of that. In fact, a historic meeting with the dictator in North Korea happened during Trump's administration. So a lot of times Reagan said it this way: when you have a strong military, it's to keep the wars at bay. It's not to go get in another war. And that was one of the things President Trump ran on and stayed out of for 4 years and pulled people out of these endless wars that, you can get into why that exactly happens, but it's an absolute mess. And now you're seeing this threat. And I think China is a bigger threat than just military. I think economically and in every other way, we saw it with them leaking out this virus intentionally or unintentionally. It started there, and look at the havoc it wreaked in this nation and across the world.
Absolutely.
It's a serious threat.
Their Navy is bigger than ours. We have Russia now meeting with them and Iran. We have bombings again in the Middle East. Loss of jobs here. The border is open. Who you have in the White House matters, doesn't it? Strength of character.
It does. And if you study the end times scriptures, I mean, those are all the nations that surround Israel. And so they're all beginning slowly to align with each other, even though they don't align on every issue. They're starting to align around different issues. And so it's a looming threat or a growing cloud, if you will. And we need to be realistic with it and not realize, I mean, if we have 30 trillion in debt and growing, 60 to 70 trillion in entitlement debt that we can't pay, who's going to own us? The borrower, Scripture says, is servant to the lender. And so that is a massive moral problem. It's not just an economic problem, it's a moral problem.
Greg, there's a big problem in a small border town. According to the New York Post report, close to 2,000 people who illegally crossed into the U.S. were released into this country without being tested for COVID-19. As a result, volunteers at a humanitarian shelter in the town of Del Rio, Texas, have put themselves at risk. Each day since mid-February, from 100 to 150 illegal immigrants have been dropped off daily at the Valverde County Border Humanitarian Coalition shelter, located about a mile from the border. Border Patrol buses bring the illegal aliens in by the dozens, where they are given food and clothing along with a bus pass or plane ticket so they can supposedly stay with people they know here in the United States. The complaint is Border Patrol is not testing all the migrants before dropping them off at the temporary shelter.
All right, Texas has become the largest state so far to offer all eligible adults the COVID-19 vaccine. State health officials made the announcement on Tuesday that come Monday, all adults will have access to this vaccine. Officials in the Lone Star State say close to 10 million doses have already been administered to residents, and Texas has close to 30 million residents. All right, I want to bring Abby back in on this. Abby, I don't know if you want to speak to any of those things, but I do have a question with you about your organization. I want you to give the name of your organization because you help abortion clinic workers like yourself come out of that industry. And I want to know, without you giving away secrets that could be used against you, how exactly do you do that?
Yeah, so our organization is called And Then There Were None. And, we do this several different ways. We reach out. We call abortion clinics. We let them know that our services are available. We send mailers into abortion clinics. We have a pretty comprehensive database of all the abortion facilities in the United States. We train those who go out in front of the abortion facilities and train them on how to effectively interact with abortion clinic workers. About 60% of the workers who come to us, they hear about us through people on the sidewalk. So that's really the most effective way for us to talk, for us to get in contact with them is the people who are out on the sidewalk.
And the way you do it really is a light in darkness, and you're really being the salt and the light that the Lord told us to be. You're not harassing people. You're just putting truth in front of them. And I totally appreciate that, because I know women that have been in that exact situation, that came to a clinic, saw people there, they turned around and left. And then I know another person, the same person that was with the other one, who went and there was nobody there, and they went and had their appointment and regretted it every day since. So what you're doing really is working. Thank you so much for being part of that. John Graves, I want to bring you back in on these stories that we see with COVID here in Texas and all the other stories, and get your thoughts of what we've talked about today.
I want to echo and piggyback what Abby just said. I love her approach. To me, it's Micah 6:8. God tells us to love justice, to do justice, but to love mercy. And the way we do that is to walk humbly with God. There is a way, Romans 2 in the Message says, God's kind, but He's not soft. We don't compromise the truth, but we can do that in grace. We can do that with love. We can do that with mercy. Psalm 85 says mercy and truth came together and they kissed. And that happens in Micah 6:8 when they walk in humility. When people are there at the gates in love, in prayer, that countenance is picked up by these ladies who are making a very, very difficult decision. And while we want to save life and we hate taking innocent life, that doesn't mean we hate the ladies who are in that situation. No. We love them. whatever's happened, they need healing, they need recovery. They've gotten there by circumstances we don't know, and we need to show mercy. And when Abby's organization does that, other organizations do that. That is the Christian model to save those who are perishing.
And Abby, we ask politicians all the time about life, and the reason why is if we get life correct, it seems like they're correct on the border, they're correct on every single other issue, because that is the preeminence, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I live in Texas, so this whole border crisis is something that, you know, we're dealing with really on a daily basis here. And, you know, I want to say that it's something that we even deal with in our ministry. We have had abortion clinic workers come to us who are here and they're undocumented immigrants. Planned Parenthood hired them. Planned Parenthood has no problem hiring undocumented immigrants, and they come to us undocumented. And so we felt it necessary to then hire an immigration attorney. And so then we work with these women and get them on a path to legal citizenship, because that's the right way to go about doing it. And so we don't have a problem with legal citizenship, but what's happening down at the border, it's wrong, it's unbiblical, and it's, you know, we have to deal with this.
We have to, and we are. And thank you so much for what you're doing. You are making a difference. Abby Johnson, find out about her organization. I want to thank you for being with us as well. Also, I want to thank Victory News contributor John Graves for being with us also. Thank you both. It's an honor for you to be with us today.